Okay. So I'd like to welcome all of you to the Women's Havara Celebrity Chef Program, Vegetarian and Vegan Cooking. Our presenters today are Temple Sinai member Ron Schwartz, who's a cardiologist with an MS degree in human nutrition, Leanne Kamenik, who is the chef at the Owl House restaurant, Temple Sinai members Nora Rubel and Rob Knight, who are the owners of Grass-Fed, a vegan butcher shop in Delhi, and Temple Sinai members Tom and Vicky Finnefrock, who are the owners of Stewart's Spices. The Celebrity Chef Committee started discussing the Celebrity Chef program before COVID. I'd like to thank our committee members, Stacy Burchard, Gail Brownell, Francine Feinstein, Monica Katzel, Ellie Krieger, and Liz Steinberg. Special thanks to Monica, who took the lead in this program, and to Vicky, who assisted in the planning, even though she's not one of our members. So we're going to ask that you save your questions until the end of the program, so that way we can get all the presentations in before some people may have to leave. Our first presenter is Ron Schwartz, who we're delighted to have with us today. He didn't think he was going to be able to make it and actually created a video for us. But Ron will be talking to us about the benefits of whole food plant-based eating. So Ron, see if we can get you unmuted and you can start.
So I submitted a pre-recorded presentation, which you should have.
Oh, you'd like, okay.
Use that because I'm looking at you from an iPhone. I'm not set up with a computer to present it from here, but I'm available for live comments afterwards. And Sherry's joining me here to participate in the discussion.
This is Ron Schwartz from Temple. Hi, everyone. This is Ron Schwartz from Temple Sinai, and I've been invited to speak to you regarding
just give me a moment.
whole food plant-based.
You want to be able to share your screen.
I will, but
it supports its use for cardiovascular health. And I want to thank Judy Weinstein and hi, everyone. This is Ron Schwartz from Temple Sinai, and I've been invited to speak to you regarding whole food plant-based nutrition and the evidence base that supports its use for cardiovascular health. And I want to thank Judy Weinstein and Vicky Finnefrock for the opportunity to speak with you today. I am a former teacher at Temple Sinai during college at the U of R, and now I'm going to teach a little bit about something else I do in my other job at the University of Rochester Medical Center. So we're going to talk about the scientific basis for why we think whole food plant-based eating is good for you, and a little bit about the diet itself. Talk about the background, treating the cause, and what's withholding the cure, as well as a little bit about the diet. So coronary heart disease differs among societies on planet Earth. It's a pediatric disease in the United States. It's ubiquitous in adults ages 17 to 34, based on a 1999 autopsy study published in JAMA. During the Korean War, 80% of US combat casualties had coronary disease at an average age of 20. American Heart Association, American College of Cardiology have advocated smoking cessation, exercise, diet with lean meat and low-fat dairy. And despite those recommendations, from the 1950s through 2022, coronary disease remains the #1 killer of women and of men. Bypass surgery and angioplasty stents do not cure the disease, and we spend approximately $1 billion in annual costs in the United States treating coronary disease. Coronary disease does not exist in more than half the planet in Okinawa, Papua Highlands of New Guinea, rural China, Central Africa, the Tarahumara Indians of northern Mexico, and the Tasmani Bolivian Indians. and farmers, these societies thrive on whole food plant-based eating with minimal intake of animal products. So how does atherosclerotic disease start, coronary disease? It starts as an injury to the vascular endothelium. The endothelium is the largest organ in your body. It is the inner lining of your blood vessels, and it is a very active organ. No, it's not the skin, it's not the male ego. The endothelium is the largest organ. It's been estimated that if you spread out your endothelium, it would cover 2 tennis courts. We recommend you not try that at home, but it is a very active organ. Inflammatory oxidative stress can injure the endothelium, which would cause reduced nitric oxide production, more foam cell production, reduced endothelial progenitor cells, which come from bone marrow, and atherosclerotic plaque can rupture, triggering a clot response and causing heart attacks and strokes. The culprit is the Western diet with added oils, dairy, meat, fish, fowl, processed foods with sugar, salt, and fat, as well as drinks. These things injure the endothelium, set atherosclerosis in motion, and it interacts with other risk factors such as hypertension, smoking, diabetes, pro-inflammatory states, and genetic lipid status. What about treating the cause? Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn is a surgeon by training who became a preventive cardiologist by default of his interests. And he started a study in 1985 at the Cleveland Clinic of 24 patients who were severely ill with coronary disease. This is a proof of concept in that within the first year, he had his first patient in his 50s, a man with right leg claudication that was severe and heart disease, who had to stop several times going across the Cleveland Clinic campus. And he was treated with a whole food plant-based diet, and his symptoms resolved within 1 year.
Judy, I think you're muted.
One of 18 who reverted to a Western diet 6 years later,
Okay, I'm just sending.
halt and
Run back a
reverse
little bit.
cardiovascular disease. After 12 years, Dr. Esselstyn observed 18 adherent patients had 49 prior events. 17 with persistent adherence had no further events. One of 18 who reverted to a Western diet 6 years later developed angina and needed bypass surgery. 12 of 18 patients had coronary angiograms on follow-up. 4 patients had significant regression of their coronary disease. So close adherence to a plant-based diet for treatment of cardiovascular disease is required. So what are the mechanisms? CAD plaque regression can occur not only by coronary angiography and Doppler pulse wave analysis, but by direct measurement of myocardial blood flow by positron emission and single photon emission computed tomography. The endothelium heals. There's an increase in nitric oxide production in the endothelium. It reduces plaque for inflammation and reduces foam cells. It strengthens the fibrous cap, which covers the inflamed plaque and makes it more resistant to erosion and rupture. And it reduces angina and it reduces clinical events such as stroke and heart attack and unstable angina. In a 2014 study he started, Dr. Esselstyn described 198 patients with significant coronary disease. 119 had prior bypass surgery or stents. 44 had prior heart attack. 99.4% adherence to whole food plant-based eating over 4 years was seen, with avoidance of any further heart attack, stroke, death, and angina improved in 93%. Of 21 non-adherents, 13 patients, 62%, did have an adverse event. So we have other lines of evidence that show over up to a 30-fold difference in major CV events favoring whole food plant-based nutrition. The Lyon Diet Heart Study was a study of the Mediterranean diet randomization, which showed a 20% reduction in events. The COURAGE trial, looking at the randomization of patients to optimal medical therapy, including whole food plant-based eating and medical therapy, with randomization to stenting in patients who were stable with coronary disease showed really virtually no difference in those two arms, indicating and showing that the stenting really in this stable coronary disease population did not further reduce heart events. It did resolve angina a little bit faster, but medical therapy with diet caught up by year 2, end of year 2. The Ornish diet in 1990 was a low-fat vegetarian diet without added oil or stress management. In 1951, the Strom and Jensen study was an observational study of World War II, not World War I, World War II in Norway. There was a profound decrease in coronary vascular disease during the German occupation when they confiscated livestock, which forced the Norwegians to consume mainly plant food and reduce their calorie counts as well. So that was a very remarkable observation study. In Finland, which was the world's leading country for atherosclerotic disease, reductions of coronary disease events by 80% occurred with reduction in saturated fat and increased vegetable consumption. A newer concept is that of plant-based diets changing the bacteria in your intestines. Stanley Hazen from the Cleveland Clinic has published this in the New England Journal in 2013 and Nature Medicine in 2013 and Nature in 2013. The metabolism of lecithin and carnitine, which is found in eggs, meat, milk, dairy, liver, shellfish, and fish, results in changes in the intestinal bacteria. People who eat everything, including animal products. And it metabolizes, these bacteria metabolize these animal products into TMAO, which is trimethylamine oxide. TMAO causes vascular injury, and ingestion of these animal foods by vegans, turns out, produce no TMAO. So if you're vegan and you eat an animal product, you actually don't produce it because you don't have the bacteria to convert the food to this harmful agent, which damages the endothelium. So plant eaters do not have the intestinal bacteria capable of producing TMAO. Now, our friend and colleague Randy Thompson in Kansas City has teamed up with a number of investigators, including Greg Thomas from California, looking at different ancient civilizations to see what the prevalence of atherosclerotic disease was using CT scans on exhumed mummies. And they found probable or definite atherosclerosis in 34% of 137 mummies from 4 different distinct cultures. The mean age of death was 36 years of age, 77 men and 44 women. These are examples in these mummies of telltale current CT evidence of atherosclerotic disease along the vasculature. And indeed, the peripheral atherosclerosis has been identified in 11 different cultures. So anthropologists, Kaplan and Girvin, were leaders of the Tasmani Health and Lifestyle Project, who had found minimal evidence of clinical atherosclerosis in the Tsimane population. It's a 15,000 person hunter-farmer population in the Bolivian Amazon. They live a subsistence lifestyle in which each family obtains their own food by hunting with shotgun or bow and arrow, fishing and farming. Study design was they brought 705 Tsimane adults who were 40 years of age or greater to the city of Trinidad for CT scanning for coronary artery calcium scoring. The extensive baseline clinical and laboratory data had been obtained as part of a 20-year Tsimane health and lifestyle project. And here we see on the left, the multi-ethnic study of atherosclerosis evaluation of coronary calcium in white men. You can see that the calcium scores go way up as a function of age in the higher risk populations here, whereas the Tsimane men had very little or no increase in coronary calcium in this 2017 Lancet publication. So there are differences in the average dietary intake of the Tasmani and Americans. The Tasmani consumed much less total fat compared to the Americans and less saturated fat compared to the Americans. Protein was about the same, and the Tasmani consumed more carbohydrate, presumably complex carbohydrate, compared to the American counterparts. But the Tasmani also had 4 to 7 hours of physical activity a day, 15 to 20,000 steps per day. Less than 10% of their time is spent sitting. Minimal smoking, 5% saturated fat with no processed food, gives them a lifetime LDL in the 70s. Blood pressure of 116/73, fasting blood sugar of 79, and body mass index of 24, with no or minimal coronary artery calcium throughout life. So the implications of mummy and Tasmani studies is that humans are predisposed to atherosclerosis. However, the Tasmani lifestyle demonstrates that coronary atherosclerosis can be avoided in the vast majority, and living a Tasmani-like subsistence lifestyle would be a real challenge in industrialized societies. What's withholding the cure? There's a lack of teaching of nutrition and medical training, a lack of knowledge of physicians, a lack of recommendation by physicians to patients, and even when the information is provided, there's difficulty changing learned behaviors by patients because we're all creatures of habit. So here are some recommendations we give patients in cardiology in the clinic who have a need for improving their heart health through dietary means. If you're going to employ these, you may want to speak with your physician. I would advise you to do that about any changes in your diet that you plan and want to consider, since underlying medical conditions such as diabetes, advanced kidney disease, GI illnesses, and food allergies may change or restrict your dietary goals. So you want to fill up on fiber first, leaving little room for calorie-containing foods. Fiber first will attenuate the surges of blood sugar in the bloodstream that cause metabolic fatigue and can damage the endothelium. High fiber balanced nutrient diets are recommended, with 2/3 of the calories as complex carbohydrates and 1/3 of calories split evenly between proteins and fats, and low salt, 1.5 grams or 1,500 milligrams is what's recommended by the American Heart Association. Using fresh and frozen foods and not processed foods. So you want to read the food labels. 25 to 30 grams per day of fiber is recommended. At least 5 servings of fruits and veggies. 50% of grains, whole grains, and breakfast. Consider fiber cereals such as oatmeal. Reduce saturated fats to less than 7% total calories. Beans for protein. Nuts are controversial. Some experts think they're okay. Some experts, such as Dr. Esselstyn, think they're not. One almond has 7 calories, one walnut has 26 calories, and one pecan has 20 calories. Nut consumption can reduce LDL by up to about 10% while maintaining monounsaturated fats and HDL. And you certainly want to avoid roasting, salt, and sugar if you're going to eat nuts. Other helpful tips: use quinoa as a lower glycemic carb to replace bread or white potato or rice. Limit the salt intake, avoid canned foods, eat fresh and frozen veggies only. Avoid fast foods, processed foods, avoid foods in packages or wrappers, no health bars, etc. Stay well hydrated with charcoal filtered water. Avoid run the water for 15 seconds before you cold water before you fill up your container. Don't use water from plastic bottles, and drink enough water to hydrate to clear the urine. That's how you know you're hydrated. Breakfast: blueberries, bananas, whole grain bread or cereal, oat milk, and almond milk are recommended. For lunch, salads with multiple veggies. Again, olive oil and vinegar or vinaigrette can be used to avoid other so-called light or diet dressings, which may have vegetable in them, which is not recommended. The vegetable oil is not recommended. Dinner, start with 2 or 3 steamed or fresh non-starch veggies and add protein such as tofu. Snacks: cut celery, baby carrots, veggies, nuts, dates, blueberries, walnuts, pecans, almonds, edamame with no salt, as discussed. You want to cut out extra carbs, avoid snack foods like chips, packaged foods, processed foods, white bread. Interval eating and fasting is recommended. Consider a 12-hour period of no eating every day. Consider the use of Console, which is corn husk fiber. Psyllium, use 1 to 2 teaspoons a day. You suspend it in water by stirring it for up to a minute, and then drinking it right down. It will lower your triglycerides and lower your blood sugar. We talked about interval eating and fasting, a 12-hour period. Strive for 5 or more veggies and fruits per day. And for weight loss, if you can figure out what 600 calories is, 600 calories less in than out will result in a 1 pound weight loss per week, which is 52 pounds per year. Here are some references. Dr. Tom Campbell is a local expert who has a web-based program, myplanetbasedprogram.com. Dr. Ted Barnett has a Rochester lifestyle program, which has been very effective and can be highly recommended. Movies include Forks Over Knives, Rip Esselson's video online of plant strong and healthy living, and The Game Changers online as well at Netflix. Here are some books and cookbooks. The China Study, famous study of China and atherosclerosis in rural China. The book by Esselstyn in 2007 is a classic, Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease. He and his wife Ann put together this whole food plant-based cookbook, which can be recommended. Joel Furman has a book, Eat to Live, which has gained a lot of notoriety and other opportunities as well. Lots of resources on literature. And finally, I want to thank my wife, Sherry, who is really the expert plant-based cook in our family, very creative and always looking for the next new appetizing whole food plant-based meal. Thanks so much for your attention. Thanks again to the organizers. Sorry I couldn't be with you in person.
Wow. And we will be sending those last couple of slides, the references that were in it, to everyone who's here today. So you have to scribble it all down. Ron, now, would you like to add anything?
Thank you for the opportunity to present that. It's we're looking forward to learning from the discussions to come. And Sherry is very modest and shy, but she's sitting right here next to me, and she can give you some tips on what she actually does to provide whole food plant-based nutrition in our house.
There's a few recipes I just use over and over again. I can type those up and send them over, but I find making a vegetarian chili goes a long way in terms of having a meal several days in a row. And then there's also a vegan meatball recipe that I like a lot that uses beans, a little bit of walnuts, and mushrooms. And that can be baked, and then you can add tomato sauce and eat that with vegetables. And we get several days, so get some mileage out of that one as well. So
There is one thing I meant to include in the talk and did not. And Sherry knows how much I love spice. And I think spices are really good for you. I think they have a lot of antioxidant properties. I did not address that in the talk. One needs to really avoid salt. You want to keep your salt minimum. As I mentioned, the American Heart Association recommends under 2.2 grams or under 2,200 milligrams of sodium, ideally 1,500 milligrams or 1.5 grams of sodium. Most Americans eat several times that. But as Sherry knows, I'm from Texas. I'm a Texan. I grew up on Mexican food. I have a very spice avid palate, and she's always looking for things that I like to eat. So I think spices are really good. I use a lot of chili, a lot of garlic, a lot of cumin, a lot of peppers, red peppers, turmeric. I just love spices, and really with very minimal salt. And I think it's not just for taste, but I think there is a lot of anti-inflammatory benefit. to adding spices. And it's also a great way to make your salad taste like meat. One of the things that we do, we usually shop in Wegmans early on a Sunday morning and spend a lot of the time on Sunday as we're watching TV all day long, just cooking in the kitchen, and I'm preparing salads. So Sherry makes her salads, I make my salads, but they're complex. They have a lot of different aspects to them, but we use a lot of, I particularly use a lot of spice in my foods to make them taste the way I would like. We're not pure vegans by any means. I do eat meat, I do eat cheese, but we try to be predominantly plant-based in our, I think the general rule is fill up on fiber. And then when you take a small amount of animal product, you don't feel like you're depriving yourself. For those of us who grew up eating meat, and find change hard. And again, the concepts of olive oil and nuts are controversial. If you really have advanced disease, I think the Esselstyn orthodox approach to not using any added oils and not using any nuts is probably worthwhile. I do eat olive oil. We do eat nuts, but they're not processed without sugar and so forth. So you want to be very careful about that. I think that pretty much covers it.
Thank you, both of you. And if you would send those recipes, probably, the email, probably have Carol Younker's email address, but we'll add those to things that we're sending out to people if you don't.
And you also do a lot of research in the New York Times, right, Sherry?
Yeah, I'm sure everybody knows about the New York Times
Maybe I
recipes.
didn't.
Yeah. So anyway.
So,
And this is Carol Teagarden. I'd also like to mention that we have a list of all attendees today. And so for all the Temple Sinai folks and all the people who are on the Women's Havurah email list, we'll have your email. If there's anyone attending today who thinks they might not be on our list, if you could please put your email address in the chat so we'll be able to send you all of this material. And if you don't hear from us with this material, please call the office and give them your email address and tell them you would like it sent, and we'll make sure that we get that to you.
thank you, Carol. So our next presenter is Chef Leanne of Owl House. Chef Leanne comes from Harrisburg, and she's always been involved in food. Growing up, she was able to learn many traditions from and cooking alongside her Italian and Pennsylvania Dutch grandparents. After graduating from Ithaca College, she moved to Rochester to begin her cooking career at the Owl House. Through her 6 years at the restaurant, she has found a passion for thoughtful and creative dishes that are accessible to all dietary needs. Today, she's going to demonstrate a simple vegan dish. And as Carol mentioned, we'll be emailing it to everyone who's here. She also gave us a couple of other recipes that we'll be passing on. Chef Leanne, we're ready for you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Leanne from the Owl House. We're located on 75 Marshall Street downtown. The Owl House is well known for our vegan cooking, but we also help out any sort of dietary restrictions. So we've got a couple of options for whatever needs you have. Today, we're going to be working on a vegan mac and cheese. The recipe is pretty simple. It gives you a lot of room to kind of adjust what you need to meet whatever dietary options you're looking for. So I did a little pre-cooking, but I'm going to start off with some vegetables here. So in this dish, I have onions, 1 jalapeno, and a red bell pepper. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put it in a saucepan. This, you have the opportunity to either use vegan butter, real butter, or olive oil. I'm going to use olive oil today. If you're choosing to leave that out of your diet, you can steam your vegetables. We're just looking for some savory vegetables. There's some garlic in here as well. So I'm going to add this in. I'm going to turn my pan on. I'm going to get those going. I'm going to steam them and saute them. Also, the recipe I sent along gives you a couple options for whatever your comfort level is with cooking. If you are a seasoned chef and you want to go right to the produce section, you can go ahead and get these fresh, or you can choose a couple of frozen options. So today I chopped up my peppers, my onions, and my garlic fresh, but then I took some frozen butternut squash. Wegmans sells a 12-ounce bag, but you can use 1 to 2 of those. I just went ahead and boiled them softly, or you can add them in frozen without boiling them to your pan once your other vegetables have softened. So I'm going to let those go ahead and soften, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the other ingredients we're going to use. So Earth Balance is a vegan butter. They also make a soy-free option if you're choosing to avoid soy, but it is traditionally a soy-based product, and we use it all the time at the restaurant. I'm going to use store-bought vegetable stock today, but what you can do is collect your vegetable scraps throughout your other cooking processes, put them in a freezer bag. When you have your freezer bag full, you can go ahead and make a homemade stock from your vegetables. Another thing I'm going to be using is nutritional yeast. Nutritional yeast has all 9 amino acids in it and is a really great replacement for some minerals that you might lose when you remove dairy and meat products from your cooking experience. So these vegetables are a little par cooked, so I'm going to add my squash in now. And you just want to make sure that everything you have is super soft, really starting to break down. If your pan starts to get a little dry, you can add more stock to it. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. I know it's kind of tough since I'm not there, but your vegetables are going to start getting really soft, and you want to make sure that they're heated the entire way through. So I'm going to give that maybe another 2 or 3 minutes for my time. This process typically takes about 20 minutes. You want to cook it on low. As this is going on, now is a great time to add any spices if you want to. I'm going to go ahead and season just with salt and pepper today. Other ingredients you want to add, if you're interested, you can do a chili powder, you can add garlic powder or onion powder or paprika, but it also works really, really well, just plain and simple, letting the vegetables shine. While those keep going, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about how we focus on our plant-based cooking at the Owl House. We have meat options, we have vegetarian options, and we have vegan options, but we always try to focus our dishes mainly on the vegetables. To help your vegetables shine, it usually takes a little bit of work, but you need love to make some good food. So we always try to focus on what's really in season, what we can get locally from local produce providers. We try to stretch our vegetables from just what they are into maybe a sauce, making a mash, making a puree. So there's plenty of options. This particular sauce we're going to put on pasta today, but it works great as a sauce on any sort of, sweet potato steak, mushroom steak. It's really versatile and gives you a couple of options beyond just regular mac and cheese. So everything here, I'm hoping you guys can see, are really soft, breaking down, almost like a mashed potato without actually having potato in it. I'm going to transfer my vegetables to a blender. You can use an immersion blender. You can use a stand mixer. I would suggest aiming for an immersion blender or one of these kinds of mixers. A food processor would be okay, but if you're really looking for a creamy texture, these are what I would suggest. So I'm going to go ahead and add these in. This is my favorite part because this is really where it changes from all of these beautiful vegetables that you're seeing into a really creamy sauce. It's also a really great recipe for people who might be a little picky, because at the end it's going to be a little cheesy, but you're sticking a ton of vegetables in there, getting those servings of vegetables that you might need throughout the day. So to this, I'm going to be adding my plant-based butter. I'm going to add a little bit of vegetable stock now, but I'm going to keep adding it as I puree it to make sure I get that good consistency I'm looking for. Just a little bit in there. And then I'm going to add my nutritional yeast. Nutritional yeast is found at a couple of our local spice stores. If you just go to the bigger grocery store, sometimes it's found in the health section, sometimes it's found in baking. The nutritional yeast is what's going to make this taste cheesy. Start with a little bit, add more until it works for you. If you add too much, you kind of get like a powdery texture. So keep your eye out as you're going through it. Okay, I'm going to put this in the blender. I'm going to mute myself because it's going to be really loud. So I only needed to blend this for maybe 10 or 15 seconds. I'm going to show you here that, if I can pop this lid off. Might be a little difficult to see, but we've got a pretty thick texture. Now's the time to add just a little bit of stock until you get a good creamy texture. If you add a little bit too much, you can put the entire thing back into your saucepan, mix it around for 30 to 40 seconds, and it should thicken up. So I'm going to add some of my stock in here to get my desired texture. I'm going to stick this lid back on. I'm going to put it back on the base for, again, 10, 15 seconds. This doesn't take a lot. Okay, so I wish I could be serving you guys face to face, but we're gonna look for a nice creamy texture. Again, very similar to what a mac and cheese sauce would be. You can add a little extra olive oil or earth balance if you would like, but I always suggest tasting and adjusting your seasoning before you serve. This is pretty good. But I think I'm going to add a little bit of nutritional yeast just to bump it up. I like things cheesy. So let me stick that lid back on. All right, so ideally, if you start with your vegetables and your mise en place, your items, your ingredients all set up, by the time you're finished making your sauce, you would be able to boil a pot of water, get a box of pasta in there, and have it cooked ready to go. I pre-cooked my pasta. The sauce will keep it warm anyway, so I'm going to combine them and show you the finished result. For us at the Owl House, because we're cooking in a higher volume, we do tend to cook our pasta before dinner service. And the pasta can last 2 or 3 days. So if you are on a time crunch or you're a fan of meal planning, it's a really quick and easy way to get yourself kind of prepared for the week. So by the time you are ready to have dinner, you can either just make the sauce or get all of this together in one go. So I used about half a box for my recipe today, and I still have a decent amount of sauce left. This sauce freezes really, really well. This sauce will stay in your fridge for probably 3 to 4 days. And you have a final result right here. Again, it's super cheesy, completely plant-based, and it's a really great recipe for you to adjust to whatever your flavor preferences are, whatever your dietary needs are, adding or removing fat or salt, adding some spice. I like to put Frank's Red Hot in mine because I like things spicy. And this is a staple at our restaurant, so hopefully it becomes a staple for you too. That's the vegan mac and cheese. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I hope you enjoy.
Leanne, I think you can see the applause from the people.
I actually can't see anybody, so hold on. Let me see if I can. Oh, there we go. Thank you.
Thank you. It was amazing. I am, even though, you know, we're not actually getting to see it up close, and we're not getting the, what I'm sure, delicious aromas. I am hungry.
I'm already having, this is for me. This is my lunch. This will probably be my dinner too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And you'll stick around for taking questions later? Great. So our next presenters are Nora Rubel and Rob Knipe. They've been members of the Temple for 12 years, and they're going to tell us about grass-fed and its products. According to their website, Rob is the butcher, and Nora, who is the chair of the Department of Religion and Classics at U of R and a prior celebrity chef presenter, is the butcher's wife. So, Rob and Nora, turning it over to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having us. It's been really interesting so far. So hopefully we can continue with that. You know,
yeah, we can second the need for nutritional yeast, I think. And also, we just want to apologize a little bit for the noise. I hope you can hear us. We're at the shop, so there are fake meats being made behind us as we speak.
So grass-fed, we started back in October of 2019. It was something that I was doing part-time. I was doing, had a full-time job, and we would put out like a list at the beginning of the week of what we were going to offer. Normally it's between like 4 to 7 things, and then people put their orders in and then pick it up the following week. And then like COVID hit, and the big difference for us then is that we ended up walking stuff out to people's cars versus them coming into the building to get stuff from us. We were located in the Hungerford at that point. I was sharing a space with Eat Me Ice Cream, and we were kind of looking for our own space, which is when we found this place, which actually used to be the old Misfit Donut space, actually. So it has good vegan bones, as they say. So we were able to kind of move in. And yeah, we opened the doors here in June of last year. So we're not quite a year in the new space at this point. We started doing this because we were both vegan, and we kind of thought, like, could we recreate some of the dishes that we used to have before we became vegan? And so I kind of dipped my toe into trying to make some seitan. First attempts, I don't know if anyone on this have ever tried. The first attempts at making seitan were awful. It was terrible. It tasted really bad. I doubted myself. I said, what's happening here? I'm normally a pretty good cook. I don't understand. But we tried, different recipes and kind of figured out some certain techniques that we liked, that we thought worked, and started to come up with things. I think the first thing that we made was the a savory breakfast sausage. No apples, no maple syrup. It's very spicy breakfast sausage patty that we put together so that we could have vegan breakfast sandwiches. The next thing, once we did that, and that kind of worked out pretty well, we kind of said, well, what else can we make?
And I said, please make me a cheesesteak.
And so that was the next step. We tried to recreate a cheesesteak. We are both from Cherry Hill, New Jersey, so
Outside of Philadelphia.
yeah. So the cheesesteak was something that was near and dear to our hearts, and that ended up going pretty well also. So then we kind of thought, what else can we make? And we expanded what the kind of different things that we were playing around with and making, and found that it was going pretty well. We have a book club that we surprised them by going vegan. We were not vegan when we started the book club.
It's really an excuse to get together and eat food.
Yeah.
And we all really like to eat together
Yeah.
and cook. And
The,
so
the book that we choose normally is based on like
for the meal
it's kind of like chosen to get to
Oh.
the meal. Yeah. So it really, we'll talk about the book for like a half hour maybe, and then we're like, let's eat, and we do that a lot.
but anyway, our book club friends who were not vegetarians or vegans all seem to really appreciate Rob's cooking, and they were pleasantly surprised. So and then they began to request things. So we thought maybe we're onto something that people who do eat meat might like, and then they could reduce their meat intake if there were options that could sub in for foods that or products that they buy that are animal products.
Yeah. So we always kind of jokingly say that we're like vegan training wheels, in that like you can get a chicken cutlet from us and then sub it into a recipe that you would make with actual chicken, pretty easily. Right? There might be some little tweaks they have to do recipe wise, but for the most
But
part,
the cutlets make a good schnitzel, for
yes,
example.
the schnitzel.
Or
We're in Rochester, New York, so legally you have to make the chicken French. It does very well for that also. So we try to make things that will translate into existing recipes maybe that you make, and then help make it a little bit easier to move over to maybe eating vegan 1 day a week, and then maybe 2 days or 3 days. So that's really kind of the thought process behind grass-fed. We do right now. I think we have probably. I'm looking at the board. I'm trying to think of like how many meats we have in our case right now, but we normally carry about 12 to 14 different things. We'll rotate in different items based on kind of the time of the year. Coming up, we have our corned beef special coming up for St. Patrick's Day. So
we will also be making hamantaschen next later in the week. So we will have vegan hamantaschen, and we're doing a fundraiser for Ukrainian refugees. It's a movement, an international movement of bakeries that are making hamantaschen and giving their profits to a refugee organization. So just putting a plug in for that. Sorry. But yeah, maybe you say like what kinds of meats we have right now, or.
So we have a bunch of different kinds. We have a few different types of sausages that we make. So we have our Italian sausage, which we prefer a little bit of a hot one. We kind of like the spicy over here. We also do one that's called we do beer brats. We also do, I've done bangers in the past.
Linguiça, which is a Portuguese kind of milder than chorizo.
And a fun one that we made just for, we have two fun ones. One is a gochujang, so it's a Korean spiced one. And then we also have a one we call taco cat dog. We asked ourselves, could we make a sausage that tastes like a taco? And we said, should we? And then we said, well, of course we must. So that's kind of a fun one that we have.
There's also deli meats, sliced meats for sandwiches. So corned beef, pastrami, turkey. What else?
We have a ham. We got roast beef. You said roast beef.
I don't know. And also, we've just mentioned the ham, and also we have bacon, and we should also say that we are kosher.
Yes.
we have we're under kosher supervision, so you can have your ham and eat it too, I guess, if that's something that's appealing to you. Okay.
Yeah.
And then there's also for folks who are gluten-free, Rob has a few different prepared foods. So a lot of the things that he makes, are meant to be ingredients for you to like take home and cook whatever you want with our products, but because they're meat analogs. But you have some prepared things so that are just kind of heat and eat. You can obviously add to it. So there's a shawarma. He also makes a gyro meat. But yeah, the shawarma is gluten free. There's a ropa vieja, which is a kind of traditionally a beef stew. That's gluten free. We have a butter chicken. And also there's like a chicken and rice salad that we call Saka's chicken salad, which is named after my mother, but it's tofu. And yeah, so we have a few, and so we're constantly trying to innovate and also have other types of salads that are just purely vegetable and grain.
Yeah. So like right now I've got a lentil and charred broccoli salads, which is gluten free and soy free. So we're trying to introduce more stuff that be more conscious of different allergens that people have. So we're slowly moving towards,
because the bulk of what Rob makes is seitan, which is gluten
heavy.
Yeah.
Gluten forward.
Yes.
That's a cooking term, I think.
Yeah. And see where are we at time-wise?
254.
Do you want to take them first then to the case?
I could if you all
have taken your Dramamine.
Yes, hold tight as we travel. Are you ready? We can show you kind of what we have in the case right now. Yep. All right. So here in the case we've got a couple of the top rows where we keep the gluten-free stuff, and then down underneath is where we keep all of our gluten stuff. So again, there's that taco cat dog I was talking about. We have some of our pepperoni that we just released, breakfast sausage, Italian sausage, bacon, or pastrami. We've got some ham down there, roast beef, turkey, some chicken cutlets, and of course, can't have a deli without Dr. Brown's, so we definitely have some of that as well. And in September, we started doing sandwiches. So we have those available 6 days a week. So we're open Sunday through Friday. And we have at least normally 5 or 6 sandwiches available every single day that we're doing, both a mixture of hot and cold.
And on Sundays we have breakfast sandwiches.
Yes.
So for example, this is
You ain't seen muffin yet.
You Ain't Seen Muffin Yet, which I got hungry while I was watching Leanne's presentation, and I went to the back and said, "Can you make me a sandwich, please?" Because I came here without eating. But yeah, you can get a Reuben here. So we have some that are sort of classic deli sandwiches, and some that have been a little more inspired recently. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
So it does look like somebody, that's pretty much the gist of what we have and what we're about.
We're happy to answer questions.
Yeah, I did see
later.
someone asked in the chat there if our vegan meats are reduced sodium. We do use reduced sodium soy sauce for when we're cooking to help try to bring that down as opposed to the regular soy sauce. I think that's it.
Thank you so much. We had, even from looking at your website, I had no idea of the wide variety of products you have. And I remember, well, it was pre-COVID, you came to one of the Hanukkah bazaars and gave out some samples. And it's time for me to come visit the business.
Probably
and-
one of, yeah, it was probably one of the first times that the Hanukkah Bazaar smelled like bacon, I think was the, yeah. So we were making some bacon in the big hall.
Yeah,
So-
Rabbi Katz said, it reeks of bacon here. We're going to actually, so if you come in, we're on Monroe Avenue, we're in Upper Monroe. And if you come in, you can taste anything that's in the case. So you can sample before you buy. Also, we'd like to offer the participants today a 10% discount. If you come into the store, just say you were part of the Sinai Celebrity Chef thing, and we're happy to
To give you that discount.
so, and then we'll answer questions, I guess, at the end with everybody else. Thanks, Judy.
And we'll be putting up a slide later that has the names of all the businesses, their addresses and websites. So that'll be available to everyone. And thank you. Looking forward to stopping in. So our final presenters today are Tom and Vicki Benefrock. You probably all know Tom and Vicki. They've been Sinai members for over 30 years, and they've presented at several Celebrity Chef events in the past. Today, they're going to demonstrate the use of spice blends to enhance vegetables. Vicki, Tom?
I'm set. Hi, everyone. We kind of glanced through the names and we do know most of you, I would say. There was one or two names I wasn't quite sure of. So thank you again. These presentations have just been great and they're making me hungry. So what we're going to do, as Judy mentioned, and I think most of you know, Tom and I own Stewart Spices. We bought the business 11 years ago. Stewart from Stewart, he has now been in business, Stewart's has, for 30 years. And I can't tell if Ron is still on or not, but I loved his little plug for spices. That was just great. So if you're there, Ron, thank you. I did not know that was coming and just loved it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and forth with some screen sharing to talk about spices, and we'll see how that goes. But I'm going to start, I think, with you just kind of looking at us or looking at me. Tom will probably disappear. We did one of these, I think it was for Temple last year, for corned beef.
Yeah.
And after he dumped a pan of boiling water on me, he said he would stay in the background. So herbs and spices. Herbs and spices really are all spices. We tend to think of herbs as being the leaf part of a plant and spices being more the seeds or the root of a plant, but the American Spice Association refers to them all as spices. And for those of you, I'm not going to be able to tip this. I'm going to have Tom tip that. So I made you a cute little, hold this up higher. Yeah, there we go. I just did a cute little thing of spices for you all to see. I like doing that. Whoops, it's my Zen. And Tom just bumped the computer. He bumped me out of the talk. Hang on a minute. I'm hoping you can still hear me. I'm going to keep talking while I try to pull me back up as if you can hear and see me.
I can hear and see you.
Okay.
People.
I am not sure. Tom bumped something with the computer and give me 1 second. Nope, that's not it. Here we go. Okay, I'm back, or at least I'm back to see you. So herbs and spices, as Ron mentioned, and as Leanne also mentioned, herbs and spices are not just flavorful and delicious and bring great taste to your food, but they really do provide health benefits. Many of them have antioxidant characters and properties that help. Many of them can help lower glucose levels. Ron actually was at a talk that I did once on Mediterranean cooking at our spice shop. And someone asked about that, and I kind of hedged the question and said, well, you know, and Ron spoke right up and gave all the journal articles as to what was going on. So I am going to try to screen share here. And share. And I'm going to start the slideshow so that you're not having to look at all of them until we shook the computer. This was all set to go. I am going to stop the screen share and try once more to get the whole picture up for you.
You want to put it in presentation mode, Vicki, and then select that.
Yeah, it was, and then it got out of it. But thank you, Ron. Let's see where it is. Talk about thinking you've got everything set and going, and then it just doesn't happen. Okay, slideshow from current slide. There we go. That's the storefront for those of you that haven't seen it. It was painted by two local mural artists, Sarah Rutherford and Leah Rizzo. They have done many around town. So this is what I was just kind of mentioning, that herbs and spices are obtained from different parts of the plant. And this is an important piece, and this is what I'm going to be focusing on today, that every herb and spice actually has more than one flavor profile. They can be viewed as bitter, cooling, earthy, floral. There's a whole range of flavors that you get out of a spice. And we sell individual herbs and spices. They are all dried. We grind them right in our shop so that the freshness is unbelievable. And what we find, though, is that we have our blends, our seasoning blends, and we have everything from Cajuns and curries to Mediterranean blends. And food flavors are really all about balance. So when we make our blends, we work very carefully to make sure that we add flavors to enhance or to counteract other flavors. So sweet, salty, as you see on the screen, makes me think of salted caramel that everyone's in love with. Or the other one, sweet, sour, or bitter, salty. Sometimes when you've made a vinaigrette, a salad dressing, and it's a little bit too citrusy or sour, what you do is you add just a touch of agave or honey or sugar to take away that sour taste. And the same holds true for bitter and salty. So that's what our seasonings are. We find that they are flavor profiles that either pair well together or that are from a certain region or cuisine. Some blends are widely accepted by name, like chili or garam masala, which we'll be using later today. Others may be more regional or proprietary, but always remember that one company's adobo is not the same as another company's adobo. Tom always gives the example that we make an adobo, and our adobo is about 40 or 50% salt. Adobo is mostly salt, whereas the Goya brand and many others are 90% salt. So they're going to not only have different sodium content, but taste different as well. So what herbs and spices go well with vegetarian cooking? And there's your answer. It's all of them, any of them. It's knowing how to combine them for maximum flavor. And some of these that I just highlighted actually are similar to what Ron mentioned at the beginning. The cumin, garlic, onion, mint, and dill are so fresh and vibrant. Celery seed and rosemary are equally vibrant, black pepper. And you're going to see that in some of the recipes that I'm going to talk about, these are what is in them. So the first recipe that I was going to talk about is our garam masala. These are the ingredients. I keep it simple. And actually tonight, or this afternoon, I was not going to use tofu. I was going to use garbanzo beans. I have the recipes, and those I will also have available for everybody. But before I show you how I'm going to cook this, I just want to show you that this is what our garam masala blend is. So it may look like one simple jar, but it has 8 different herbs and spices in it. So starting over here, that is coriander seed, cumin, black pepper, bay leaves, cardamom, cinnamon, which we fresh grind right in our shop, and clove. This up here looks like a nutmeg, but the red is what's in this recipe, and it's called the aril. It's the outer red covering of a nutmeg, and that's what mace is, in case you've never seen mace before. So all of this goes into making our garam masala, which then when you try to look at a flavor profile for garam masala, these are the ways that we kind of look at how the spices represent themselves. So mace, cardamom, cinnamon are considered warm. Hot would be the black pepper, although our garam masala is not at all spicy. Cumin is very earthy. Spicy, which we don't mean hot spicy, but a sharpness to the flavor. Bay leaf, cinnamon, clove, coriander, and cumin. Coriander is very floral. For those of you that are cilantro haters, coriander and cilantro are from the same plant. I myself am one of those people that the cilantro tastes like soap, but I love coriander. To me, it's floral and citrusy even. Very sweet also, as is the cinnamon, and coriander and cumin have a little bit of nuttiness to them. So what I'm going to show you then is, I am back here, and I'm going to show you how I put all of that together. So the recipe calls for those ingredients that you saw. I pre-sauteed my onion, so that's in here. And all I'm going to do, Leanne, the chef, mentioned mise en place, where you pre-chop and pre-slice your food. So that's what I try to do. And so what I did was I'm going to dump in, this is sweet potato. It's one sweet potato cut into pieces. I dump that in. I'm going to dump in some tomatoes. I use the diced or the petite diced. That goes in. I do use coconut milk, and as Ron was mentioning, coconut milk is another item that's sort of on a yes/no list. It depends on how you do your plant-based, but I feel like when I use it in a large recipe, you're not eating a can of coconut milk. It's high in fat. And then I'm going to put in my garbanzo beans, rinsed and drained. And that is pretty much it. Everything is in here. I'm going to put in a little bit of broth just to loosen it up a little bit. I'm not really measuring, but it's an unsalted vegetable stock. I'm going to put that on the stove. I'm just giving it a stir. And that's going to cook for about 15 minutes. Really, it's just the sweet potato. You could use squash instead of sweet potato, but any of those are fine. And that is how simple that recipe is. Oh, except for the except for the garam masala. Tom said, what about the seasoning? So this is our garam. No, leave it to me. This is our garam masala, and I put in a generous amount. I am going to put in, I'm going to check my little thing here, my recipe, about 2 to 3 tablespoons. So not teaspoons, I put in a lot. Now we do have another curry. It's a Madras curry, and the Madras curry has a little bit of cayenne in it. So it does have a little heat, and we like it a little spicy. So I tend to split and use a little bit of each, but I'm gonna let Tom put that in. Maybe put in a tablespoon of the garam and a tablespoon of the Madras. All right, so he'll get that in there and give it a stir. That's number 1. The next recipe, I'm gonna go back to screen share. And we'll start the second recipe. So this is just a little bit about garam masala. It's a curry. All of our curries are salt-free. So keeping true with what Ron said about watching your salt intake, it's a salt-free blend, so you can use as much of it as you want. This up here is what it will look like when it's done. That one has tofu in. Sometimes I just take tofu, I slice it in half, kind of the long, to make it thinner. And then I cut it in half, either triangles or squares. And I just rub it with garam masala or Madras curry. If you use oil, you can use a drop of oil, otherwise a non-stick pan. And down here are just 2 other iterations of kind of, this is over greens, and it's just chickpeas or garbanzo beans with garam masala and some tomatoes, and same with this one. So the next one that I'm going to talk about, the next seasoning blend, is salad seasoning. And this is a picture that actually our daughter Megan made, and she took a beautiful picture. She does much better on photos than I do. So this is a chickpea tuna. It is not tuna fish. It's made out of chickpeas. And I'm sure many of you who do eat some plant-based food have had this before. It's a pretty common recipe. What we use in here is our salad seasoning. Our salad seasoning, again, is it's a complex mix of herbs and spices. And so to walk you through this one, what I love about it is it has 3 different kinds of seeds. It has sesame seeds, celery seed, and poppy seed. On the next slide, you're going to see what they each bring to the table. But one thing they bring is crunch. And that's the thing about herbs and spices in general. They not only bring flavor, but they also bring texture, and they have negligible calories, negligible sodium, and the upside potential of all sorts of good nutrients. This is dillweed. I put this here as a reminder to me as well as to you. This is onion and garlic and black pepper, and this one is paprika. And all of that goes into this mix to make our salad seasoning. So here's kind of when you break it down. Again, the black pepper adds just a touch of, that hot heat. The sweetness from the poppy seeds, dill, and paprika. A green herbaceousness from the dill. Dill is just one of those that the flavor just fills the room when you cook with it. The pungency of the garlic and onion, and also paprika. The bitterness of the celery. I mentioned early on, celery is one that can sometimes have a bitterness, but you'll find it in everything. And the nuttiness of the sesame seeds and the poppy seeds. So I am going to take this off and show you how I make dish number 2. All right. So what I did was I opened up 2 cans of garbanzo beans here. Again, you'll be getting the recipe. I drained them. I saved the liquid from one of them because you'll see in plant-based cooking, a lot of times they use the liquid from garbanzo beans. So I saved that to use. And what I did is I've just started to mash it. I don't put it in a blender or a food processor because you would end up with hummus. And that's not the texture you're going for. So I use just my my potato masher. Just to show you the one I use. This is it. Just an old-fashioned potato masher. I mash everything up. I leave some pretty coarse. I had started it before I signed on just so that I wouldn't take all the time mashing. And then what I do is I take, for the liquid, again, this is, you could use mayonnaise, you could use a plant-based mayonnaise. I don't. So what I use is a little bit of mustard. Shameless little plug, but we have a stout mustard kit, which makes your own mustard. So we like to use that. So it comes out looking like this. It's a whole grain brown and yellow seeded mustard. Many of you have tried. So I put that in here. And along with that, I just put in a little bit of tahini, and a little bit of pickle relish. I am one of those people that loves pickle relish in my tuna fish. Some people don't. I have a feeling I probably fell in love with it because I never liked tuna fish, and it always made it taste a little better to me to have some of the flavor not there. So I just kind of give that a mush around. I add a little bit of this liquid to it, give it a little stir, and I just dump it in. And I just kind of mash it all into place. Stir, and that's it. That's how simple it is to make. So a lot of times, you know, we have this notion that making plant-based food is complicated and takes 25 ingredients and it's difficult to do, but it really doesn't have to be. So I would give this another mash or two, but in the interest of time, I'm not going to. I don't have the pretty paprika on top of it. It's not stuffed in a tomato right now. Tom's getting himself a cracker so he can have some. I'll let him spoon that out. And when I say, you know, it doesn't have to be complicated, I chuckle because our daughter loves our spices. Our son loves our spices, but he always feels he can do it better. Oh, he wants me to have a little cracker with the tuna. Just like on the cooking shows, delicious. So you can fuss, you know, you can buy all individual herbs and spices, and I see a question pop up. You can buy individual spices and you can mix your own blends, but we work with a food scientist, a food chemist. We know what goes together. And so why mess with it? Once our blend is complete, it's great. All of our herbs and spices and seasoning blends are all certified kosher. None of them contain any gluten or any nuts. We don't have nuts or gluten on premise, but we are not certified gluten-free. And the reason for that is you have to certify every product and you have to pay for every product you certify. And you have to do that once a year or more than once a year. So that nothing is certified gluten-free, but there's no gluten used in any of our products. So they are without gluten. Where do I get my unsalted vegetable stock? So this one is Kitchen Basics, and it's unsalted. I also like, there's an Imagine brand that's called Not Chicken Soup, and I really like that. So let me go back to screen share. And here are some other things I make with salad seasoning. I really wanted to have a lot of visuals for you today. So up here is coleslaw. when you think about it, when you make a broccoli salt slaw or a coleslaw, you love the little crunch that's in it. And so we have restaurants, a lot of our restaurants will buy our salad seasoning. They make their own dressing to go on their slaws, but then they add our salad seasoning for that crunch. Over here, it's just a stuffed portobello with spinach and salad seasoning. Down here is a 4-bean salad. Sometimes I use salad seasoning. If you remember, it's got the onion and the garlic in it. It's got a little dill in it. So it's got these great pops of flavor along with the seeds. This is another tuna fish. Sometimes with the bean salad, I also use our corn on the cob seasoning. And I know many of you are pretty familiar with that one. And then this one here, this is my favorite, garbanzo beans. I just roast them in the oven with salad seasoning. If you use oil, the oil helps it to stick. If you don't use oil, again, a little bit of that liquid that you've saved from the garbanzo beans, or don't rinse them, leave them a little bit sticky. This, and you can't really read it, it's much too much reading, but it's just to let you know that with a lot of our seasonings that are used on vegetables and vegetarian cooking, we have these tip and idea cards, and it gives you a half a dozen ideas of different ways to use it. So I've got 2 dishes done. This is the last dish. This one, salad seasoning, also completely salt-free, 25 of our or more of our seasoning blends are. This one is not, but I'm still going to use it, and I will give my rationale. This is smoke and sweet. I am in love with it because of the smoky feel. It's sort of like Rob and Nora were saying, there's something about that smell of bacon that we just all love, that smoke. So this is a pretty complex rub. And I also like people to know that you don't have to shy away from our seasoning blends that have a meat purpose or that have the word meat in them. You know, this in our house hog rub I use for my vegan cooking all the time. We also have one called Burger Blast, and I use that for my vegan lentil-based meatloaf and sloppy joes. You know, it's the right blend that gives you that flavor. So here we do have salt and sugar. This one has both. Paprika, celery seed, a lot of barbecues have that, as I mentioned. The garlic and the onion, again, cumin, many barbecues have cumin. Actually, everything has cumin. And then over here is a little bit of cayenne, but there is no heat to this one. It's not hot and spicy. Here is black pepper. And this, to remind myself, that is actually hickory smoke powder that we get. And that's what gives it the smokiness. And all of these things go in to make this one blend, smoke and sweet rub. Salt and sugar in barbecue rubs is high in content. That's just the way barbecue rubs are. What I'm going to be making today is a soup. And I'll talk to you about how that breaks down to the level of sodium and sugar. But here's the profile as I showed you with the others. You get some heat from the black pepper and the cayenne. Again, though, you won't taste it. Cayenne is a phenomenal spice because if you just eat cayenne on a chicken wing, it's going to burn your lips. It's hot. But when you use it in very small amounts in the background, it's absolutely delicious. The sweetness comes from the paprika and the sugar, pungency, garlic, onion, paprika. You can kind of read down on this. And so what I am going to make for my soup is not pictured here, but I'm just so I don't have to go back and forth, I'm going to show you this and then I'll show you the soup that I'm making. Smoke and sweet rub. Well, I'm going to first show you these and then I'll talk about the salt. So this is grilled outside on a grill with smoke and sweet. This one actually used crazy good chicken on it. It's a lighter color. This is a hots and beans casserole. It's with the tofu hot dogs. It's been a long pandemic and comfort food sometime is just what we needed. So we cooked that up. This is baked potatoes with a little almond milk, twice baked potatoes, but to give it some more flavor, smoke and sweet, cauliflower steaks. Again, don't shy away from making your favorites. So this is a vegetable stew in the crock pot. I actually put dumplings on top, depending on whether or not you're using any flour at all. You can also put a cornbread topping on it, again, based on your choice of whether you're eating that. And this is a baked bean casserole, but this is just delicious. And instead of smoke and sweet, oops, I changed slides on you, you get it all. This is just a quick show of all of our salt-free. I'm gonna show you one more slide, and then I'm gonna show you how I make the soup. These are just, we want you to reimagine all of your favorites. This is a caramelized onion and Gruyere quiche with apple pie spice. Megan again made that, hence the gorgeous picture. That's if you use eggs. If you don't, there's substitutes for eggs. There's the silken tofu that you can use. Minestrone, Greek herbs. I see Carol. This is actually Carol Teagarden's dish. She brought it over for a football game many years ago, and it's on all of our websites because I love the photos so much. And that was with our Greek herbs. I also do it with our za'atar. And this I did at Mike's house, our son's house, one Rosh Hashanah. I wanted to kind of emulate some kind of a roast since, you know, I wasn't eating that. And so I roasted the whole cauliflower in the juices with the potato and the fennel. I know Nora and Rob said something about St. Patty's Day, so I would absolutely have to try their corned beef because that's probably amazing. Last year, I made this while my dad and Tom ate the corned beef, and I just did cabbage, potatoes, carrots with caraway seeds. Soka, if you've not heard of it, that is chickpea flour. So it is gluten-free. It's made with just water. You don't need any oil in it. It's not with yeast. And so sometimes we'll make that with all different seasoning blends. We love our everything bagel, which is salty, and our herbs de Provence salt-free. We have a shawarma. I do it all the time on garbanzo beans, probably my favorite. Although the other night, Tom and I did it on eggplant. We roasted eggplant in aluminum foil and with shawarma, and then we put it in pita bread. It was phenomenal. And my last slide here of other foods, just to get you thinking. Asian fusion or 5-spice in your stir fries, island spice for a bean and kind of mango salad that I do in the summer with rice. Apple pie spice has no sugar in it, no salt, no sugar. And you don't need to add sugar when you're making your applesauce. Just add the apple pie spice. This is corn on the cob seasoning. It is my go-to for roasting every vegetable in the world. And I made a little vinaigrette with this with some pomegranate seeds and toasted walnuts. And again, I have to give a shout out to Carol Teagarden. She made the first maklube that I ever had. It's a traditional Palestinian dish. It's in the Jerusalem cookbook, but I now make it without chicken. I will say the chicken does add depth of flavor and the fattiness, but I do it with eggplant and cauliflower and garbanzo beans, and it's on a rice base. And the Bloody Mary I just put up here, that's my son also takes gorgeous pictures. There's the Bloody Mary in the corner looking outside of his front yard. Bloody Marys use Worcestershire powder, Worcestershire sauce has anchovies in it, so it's not vegan, but we make our own Worcestershire powder that has nori seaweed for that same briny saltiness. So our Bloody Marys and our Worcestershire powder are both vegan. I'm going to come back and show you how easy that last soup is, but I wanted to just mention, as Nora mentioned also, stop by our shop. We have put together samples of garam masala, salad seasoning, and smoke and sweet. So you can get all 3 samples of those, and anything you purchase this month, mention that you were here and we'll donate 10% of it back to Temple Sinai. So let me come off of this. And in 30 seconds, I will show you what I have done here. So to make the third recipe is a bean soup. So I pre-sauteed some really finely chopped carrots and an onion. And to this, I am going to add some beans. So here I'm using pinto beans that I have already drained, kidney beans and rinsed, and cannellini beans. I like the pinto and the kidney in this bean soup recipe. I'm going to add about a cup of the vegetable stock. I just remembered, I forgot to put the salad seasoning into the tuna, the chickpea tuna. Guess I don't make a good advertisement for myself.
I can't fire her.
Yeah. And then I add our smoke and sweet seasoning. And what I mentioned about this is I put in about 2 teaspoons. So if 50% of what I just put in is salt and sugar combined, that means an entire pot of soup. I just cook all of this down and then I use the immersion blender and blend it out. So it reminds me of bean and bacon soup from when I was growing up, Campbell's bean and bacon soup. But what that means is 50% of the blend, so about 1 teaspoon by volume of the 2 teaspoons is salt and sugar. What that means is about a half a teaspoon of sugar and a half teaspoon of salt is in the entire pot of soup. If you think of a teaspoon as having about 2,300 milligrams of sodium, this is a half a teaspoon. So if I ate the whole pot of soup, I would hit that 1,500 milligrams of sodium, but I'm not going to eat a whole pot of soup. So always remember that even if something has salt in it, or a drop of sugar, if you, some people on plant-based eat 0 sugar. Tom and I actually took the course from Tom Campbell, and we asked him about a couple of our blends like the smoke and sweet and the corn on the cob. And he said, for the amount of sugar you're getting, it's negligible. It really is. All right. I think that's the end. I've got all 3 dishes cooking. This one would be done. I just would add my peas and let it simmer 15 more minutes. My soup is cooking and will be done in about 15 minutes. And Tom added this and he's eating away over here. He put the salad seasoning into it. And I'll turn it back to you, Judy.
I'll just let you get your bite first. Thank you so much, Vicki. It was all so yummy. And I just want to read Jill's comment in the chat. Yummy. We're all coming to your house for dinner.
Somebody should come.
So I'm just going to put up the contact information for businesses that were here today. And we will be sending this to you, but have it in the meantime. So just remember to stop in at all places. We would like to thank all of our presenters. Although we weren't there in person altogether, it was still an incredible event. We thank you. And the Women's Havurah is going to express our gratitude to the presenters by making a contribution to Ukraine relief efforts in their names. So I am going to stop sharing. And if you have any questions for any of our presenters, I think probably either put it in the chat or from the bottom of your screen, can tell it that you can raise your hand. I think that'll be easier than our having to look through all the screens of people. Oh,
Can I add something? Hey, hi, sorry. I just wanted to say that because we rotate our products, if anybody wants to follow us on Facebook or Instagram, every day we sort of update what we have. So like what sandwiches are available, everything else. So yes.
And this is Carol Teagarden. I would like to remind you all that if you don't receive an email from us, please be sure to either contact Carol Yunker or me if you have our emails, or the office to let us know. I'm not sure exactly when this is going out. We're going to compile the list of people who were here. There are a couple people whose last names are not on their profiles there. There's a Danielle S. There's a Donna, and I'm not sure who you are. So if you want to put your name and your email address in the chat if you think we don't have it. Otherwise, again, please be sure to contact us if you don't get the information.
oh, and I forgot before we do the Q&A that so let's do it. Spices knows how many sample packets to put together. If you could just on this poll say whether you're planning on picking up spices.
And we don't, what we did is we put together about 25 packages of each. So I think we'll be set. Yeah.
Okay, then we will end the poll.
I will also show you the first dish is done. Mom said, put it in a poll. No, please don't move that. I'm just gonna hold it up. Yep. So that one's done, and the other one will be done as soon as I use the immersion blender and blend it down.
Okay, and I can see that Leslie Jacobs has a raised hand. So Leslie, want to ask your question?
Yes, my question's for the non-meat butchers. I'm really have been hesitant about buying any kind of processed meat item because of the high sodium and all of those. Do you put a lot of salt in your non-meat products?
That's us.
No, so not too much. The thing that has the highest amount of sodium is, like I mentioned before, the reduced sodium soy sauce. So, and it depends on like what you're getting. So like for our
turkey's really low salt, right?
yeah, so that has like miso in it, but the amount that we're using for a recipe is not very high. So I think we use like 2 tablespoons for what ends up being a 2.5 pound log. So, for your slice, like for us, we make pretty big sandwiches. So like a 1/4 pound would be like what we use on a sandwich, but your bread may not have the real estate for a 1/4 pound of stuff. So you may end up using less.
Are there any other questions? And I see lots of comments in the chat about how wonderful this event was. And Carol, are there any announcements to make about upcoming celebrity Women's Half Hour events?
Not yet, but I just want to thank all the presenters and all the planners and organizers for a fantastic program. It was wonderful. Thank you, everybody.
So we would,
If we have more programs coming up, we will definitely be sending you information, but nothing right now.
so we would like to thank everyone for coming. We certainly thank our wonderful presenters who rose to the challenge of Zoom. And we look forward to having our next Celebrity Chef event in person, where we get to get a better look of what's being done, of smelling these wonderful dishes and the tastes afterwards. So thank you all for joining us on a rare sunny afternoon.